Hello again. As a reminder, I'm Arnie Aronson from Canada's Drug Agency, and my daughter tells me I'm really boring. So welcome back from the concurrent sessions. I really hope your symposium experience is off to an excellent start. Rebonjour, je me présente encore, Arnie Aronson, de l'Agence des médicaments du Canada. Je vous souhaite un bon retour des séances parallèles. J'espère que le symposium commence très bien. A reminder that all plenary and concurrent sessions are being live streamed in the CVent app, and also one of the sessions would be live streamed in this room, the one that is the most popular. So just be aware of that. If you can't get into a session, you come up here, it may be live streamed. Recordings are also available for on-demand viewing if anyone misses a session. I also hope you got a chance to hydrate and get a snack at the break to fuel yourself through until our welcome reception, which begins at 4:15 p.m., ahead of a patient meet and greet in the evening. And don't miss that welcome reception where you get an opportunity to meet our special guests, the 2026 recipients of our recognition awards, who have made exemplary achievements in the health technology assessment field. You'll also have a chance to view a great selection of scientific posters and speak to the authors about their work. And a cash bar and refreshments will be available. Je voudrais vous rappeler que la réception d'accueil commencera à 16h15, puis sera suivie par une rencontre des groupes de patients et patientes en soirée. À ne pas manquer à la réception d'accueil, vous pouvez rencontrer nos invités d'honneur qui ont remporté un prix de reconnaissance 2026 pour leur réalisation exceptionnelle et en évaluation des technologies de la santé. De plus, vous aurez l'occasion de voir une grande sélection d'affiches scientifiques et de parler aux auteurs et autrices de leurs travaux. Il y aura un bar payant et de rafraîchissements seront offerts. But first, we have a very exciting final panel to wrap up the day with, the CDA AMC watch list. I just got a notification on my phone from LinkedIn telling me that this was about to happen. And I said, well, I'm going to be there. It's great. This is our annual forecast that examines technologies and issues that have the potential to transform health systems and shape the future of healthcare and ultimately the future of our health. So please join me in welcoming our watch list panelists to the stage. Kate Murray from Stem Cell Network. Coming. Yeah, please join. You can all come. Stéphanie Michaud of Biocan RX, Camille Leahy, a patient partner, and CDA AMC's own Chris Camel.
Thank you, Arnie, and welcome everyone to our much-anticipated launch of our 2026 watch list of the top technologies and issues related to regenerative medicine. As Arnie mentioned, my name is Chris Camel. I'm Director of Health Technology Assessment here at Canada's Drug Agency, and I'm looking forward to being your moderator this afternoon. As I hope you all know by now, our 2026 watch list was published this morning. If you sign up to our e-alerts, you would have received that in your inbox. There's also a QR code available at the CDA booth if you are interested in seeing the report and haven't yet. At this plenary session, this is really our official launch of that report. We hope we can put the insights we've gathered at the forefront of many of the conversations you'll have over the next 2 days. In terms of what we have in store for you over the next 45 minutes, I'll tell you about our speakers, I'll talk about the technologies and issues in our report, and then I'll move over to the chairs and we'll discuss what these issues really mean for patients and health systems in Canada. And so here today we have some of Canada's most well-known thought leaders in the area of regenerative medicine. At the far end of the chairs, Kate Murray has led the Stem Cell Network for nearly a decade. The Stem Cell Network is Canada's only national organization with a specific focus on the field of regenerative medicine. It aims to accelerate research in the field, develop talent, mobilize knowledge, and support commercial readiness. Next to Kate is Dr. Stéphanie Michaud, the President and CEO of Biocan RX. Canada's immunotherapy network. Under her leadership, BioCanRx is focused on supporting translational research to bring therapeutics that are developed and manufactured in Canada to cancer patients. And Camille Leahy is a cancer survivor and patient advocate who shares her stories to support accessible clinical trials and innovative treatments across Canada. Thank you all for being here. Before we begin, I'll just take a moment to note our disclosures. So here at CDA, we are funded by the federal, provincial, and territorial ministries of health, with the exception of Quebec, and we do receive application fees from the pharmaceutical industry for our reimbursement review program. Our speakers today are employed by their respective organizations and have no additional disclosures to declare. So now what people, I think, are here to hear about is the 2026 watch list. So I'll walk through the items that were identified on the list, but before that, I'll just talk a little bit about what the list is and how it was generated. So for those who may not be aware, every year we publish a watch list to signal emerging technologies and issues that have the potential to transform health systems over the next 5 years. Delivering this report is part of our strategic ambition under the anticipate priority of our current strategic plan. Under this pillar, we deliver forward-looking insights that leaders need to plan for emerging decisions and policy considerations in the health technology landscape. The point of this work is not to predict the future, but rather to help health systems plan for it. Each year, we pick a focus area. Last year, we released a watch list on applications of artificial intelligence in the health system. This year, the theme for our report is regenerative medicine, the branch of medicine that develops methods to regrow, repair, or replace damaged or diseased cells, organs, or tissues. The focus of the list itself is on technology platforms, or the overarching therapeutic approaches, modalities, and methods, rather than individual products. These platforms are used to develop many different types of products within their respective categories. This approach reflects the broad range of emerging regenerative medicine products and the rapid pace of change in the field. The list itself is meant to be impartial and is intended to inform that health system planning in Canada. In terms of how we create the list, it's a unique example of co-creation by a diverse range of contributors. We established an advisory group of external experts, including people with lived experience, to guide the overall direction with the work. So they help us sort of frame the theme area, understand the technical terminology, and they also provide input on a short list of approximately 20 items that we've identified from published literature and other sources. The final 10 items of the list are selected using an approach to facilitate consensus and priority setting. That session was held in the fall, and it involves patient partners, clinicians, policymakers, and more. This year, 2 of our panelists, Kate and Stephanie, were part of that session. So now the top 5 regenerative medicine platforms that we identified through this process. I do want to highlight that these are not in a particular order. The 5th item on this list is just as important as the first, but it does reflect a collaborative approach to developing this list from a broader selection of health technologies. So the first on our list is adoptive cell therapies that harness the body's immune cells to fight disease. Adoptive cell therapies are a type of cellular immunotherapy in which a patient's own immune cells, or cells from a donor, are collected, modified, and infused back into the patient to help fight disease. These therapies are already showing real-world impact in oncology and could expand to other indications. We're calling these therapies to watch because they could lead to improved safety outcomes by targeting disease-causing cells more precisely while leaving most healthy cells unharmed. The development of new approaches is also another thing to consider, and new developments could help make these treatments more affordable to improve access across health systems. And the prolonged immune response after cell infusion may result in long-lasting benefits that could be curative for some conditions. Next on our list is bioengineered skin that replicates the structure and function of the body's largest organ. Traditional approaches that transplant healthy skin from unaffected areas or from a donor are effective, but are limited by the amount of healthy skin available. Bioengineered skin is a promising alternative to these limitations. It consists of lab-developed tissue constructs made from patient cells, donor cells, or biomaterials that are designed to replicate the function of natural skin. These substitutes can be customized to support healing, reduce scarring, and better match patient needs. Advances in biofabrication, like 3D printing, are also bringing improvements like enhanced elasticity and pigmentation matching. And customizable grafts enable better treatment of larger or complex wounds. Third on our list are gene therapies that modify a person's genetic material to treat or prevent illness. When genes are altered or dysregulated, they can disrupt biological processes and lead to disease. Gene therapies aim to address this by modifying a person's genetic material to treat or prevent illness. Gene therapies work by replacing, editing, suppressing, or adding genes to restore function. These approaches can be delivered outside the body, where cells are modified and returned, or directly inside the body. Advances in gene therapy approaches are expanding applications across areas such as genetic disorders, heart disease, and diabetes. Gene therapies could address major unmet treatment needs, especially for rare and previously untreatable illnesses. They have the potential for long-lasting or even curative outcomes, and early intervention with gene therapy can prevent disease progression and lifelong complications. Fourth on our list are stem cell therapies that repair or replace lost cells to address the underlying cause of disease. Many chronic and degenerative diseases cause lasting damage by destroying cells the body can't naturally reproduce. Traditional treatments often manage symptoms without repairing the damage. Stem cell therapies offer a regenerative approach by aiming to restore or replace lost cells, addressing the underlying cause of disease. Stem cells are unique in their ability to self-renew and to develop into different specialized cell types. They can repair or replace damaged cells, addressing root causes rather than symptoms, and they have the potential to provide long-lasting effects for complex diseases. These cells can potentially be used on a range of conditions from autoimmune to neurodegenerative diseases, and they may help reduce health system costs over time by decreasing hospitalizations and repeated treatments. And last on our list of technologies are structural scaffolds and biomaterials that are necessary to engineer tissues and to restore or improve biological function. Beyond selecting the right cells, successful tissue engineering depends on recreating the physical and biochemical environment that the cells experience in the body. Structural scaffolds, 3D frameworks made from biomaterials, serve this purpose by providing mechanical support and guiding cell growth and organization. These scaffolds can be implanted directly in the body or used to grow tissues outside the body before transplantation. Applications already span bioengineered skin, cartilage repair, bone regeneration, and reconstructive procedures. Scaffold technologies support the development of increasingly complex tissues, and the hope is eventually whole organs. Emerging applications could help address donor shortages and expand access to care, and injectable scaffolds offer minimally invasive treatment options, potentially reducing recovery times. Now, with these promising technological developments, there are also issues that the health system needs to consider to realize the full potential of these advancements. First on our list is patient safety and the risk of harms. Regenerative medicine comes with unique patient safety considerations for regulatory and clinical decision-making because many therapies carry the potential for serious or irreversible harm. A treatment can edit the wrong part of the DNA or may cause unexpected changes to how genes work. Other safety concerns may also come from the source of biological materials, including non-human cells or tissues that could risk infections that can spread from animals to humans. As with all healthcare, patient safety must remain the top priority in regenerative medicine. Canada's existing regulatory, legal, and ethical frameworks already provide important protections for patients, but there are some regenerative medicine therapies that carry greater uncertainty in their safety profiles. Next on our list of considerations is disparities in access to and implementation of emerging technologies. As emerging regenerative technologies become available, their implementation raises important considerations related to health equity. The identified treatments that I've listed in the previous slide are mainly delivered through specialized centers in certain locations and equipped with advanced laboratory infrastructure and highly trained personnel. There are also systemic barriers that disproportionately affect some groups. Access to regenerative therapies may vary based on race, ethnicity, age, place of residence, and sex or gender. Finally, regenerative medicine relies on scarce biological materials like donor cells, tissues, or organs. When resources are limited, the criteria for allocating care needs to be developed transparently and with meaningful involvement from the affected patient groups and communities. Third on our list is scalability. Scalability in this context is about our ability to develop treatments so they can be produced reliably in the real world and in sufficient quantities to reach a large group of potential patients. Many regenerative medicines are difficult to manufacture at scale and face implementation challenges in moving from early clinical settings to widespread clinical use. With limited manufacturing capacity in Canada, regenerative technologies are difficult to scale, indicating the need to expand domestic production and for greater support to get them beyond the lab and delivered to patients. Fourth on our list is health system capacity, workforce readiness, and affordability. Issues like health system capacity, workforce readiness, and affordability routinely impact our ability to implement new technologies in Canada. These issues remain relevant to the introduction of new regenerative medicine therapies. There's a growing need for a skilled workforce that's trained in the safe handling and administration of biological products. Further, affordability concerns are particularly significant in smaller provinces or territories where individualized therapies put greater demand on already limited capacity. Canada does have an opportunity to lead in redefining development and assessment paradigms for regenerative medicine by exploring innovative approaches that balance patient access and health system sustainability. And finally, alternative models for research, product development, and regulation. Regulatory pathways for regenerative medicine products are still evolving and differ internationally. This creates some uncertainty about what evidence is needed to show safety and effectiveness, and how trials should be designed to meet regulatory requirements. As some of these products move into large-scale clinical studies, investigators often face challenges related to study design, patient recruitment, and product standardization. To address these challenges and support innovation, a shift towards more adaptive models of research and development may be considered that promote early and ongoing collaboration in alignment between patients, clinicians, scientists, industry, regulators, and payers. And that is our 2026 watch list. So now I will take a stroll over to the chairs and we'll have a conversation about these items with our panelists. So Camille, if I could start with you as a recipient of some of these therapies, could you maybe share with the audience what your experience was accessing regenerative medicine therapies?
So I know some of you know my story and how I accessed therapy. When I relapsed after a stem cell transplant in March of 2021, I was given an option to do more chemotherapy, and because I was in a world pandemic, I refused that chemotherapy. And I recalled speaking to a doctor that had mentioned CAR T-cell therapy in the past. So when I refused the chemotherapy after being denied medications that I had done prior to stem cell transplant that had put me into a remission, but they were denied, I was searching and managed to find a clinical trial. I asked a doctor about CAR T-cell therapy, and she told me that there was actually a clinical trial happening in Ottawa. I was in Toronto at Princess Margaret at the time. And I just so happened to have a family member that worked at that hospital, and we made it our mission to get me into that clinical trial. And it wasn't without any difficulties. I was sent home 3 times from trying to attempt to get there, but I made it and I got there. But yeah, it wasn't quite the journey there. Like I had, if I didn't have family that lived there, I don't think I would have been able to participate.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And we will come back to that theme of accessibility and education and patient awareness as we continue the conversation. Stephanie, maybe to level set our audience, so one of the items on the list was about scalability and the challenge of producing some of these therapies at scale. Can you maybe just explain at a high level the complexities of manufacturing these types of products and actually delivering them to patients?
Absolutely. We were the organization responsible for investing in the clinical trial that Camille participated in. So I'm sure that a lot of folks in this room are aware of the complexities of manufacturing for CAR T, but for those of you that are not, I'll just spend a minute describing what this looks like. First of all, the patient, and there are commercial CAR-Ts now that are, of course, available in Canada, and we're very fortunate for this. First of all, a patient is referred. Their hematologist or oncologist has ensured that there is a slot available for manufacturing of the product, this being a commercial product, or if they're participating in a clinical trial, would be in contact with the manufacturing facility to establish when this product could be made. Secondly, the patient is apheresed. So this is the procedure that takes place in a hospital here in Canada where the cells from the patient, and in particular T cells, are isolated. These are collected from the patient and then they are shipped to the manufacturing facility. In the case of a commercial product, they are shipped internationally to the US for transvection. In the case of our clinical trial, they are shipped to Victoria, BC, where the manufacturing of the CAR T-cell products are currently taking place. Once these products arrive at the facility, they are then transvected to produce and to be genetically modified, and to produce finally this product that is the CAR T-cell. This can take, it really varies on the processes that are used, but it can take 4 to 6 weeks for this full cycle to be completed when we're talking about a commercial product. Once the product is transvected, the CAR Ts are being made, these cells are then expanded, and then they are sent back north to Canada for the patient to be infused. The same thing happens, of course, in the case of our clinical trial. The patient receives these cellular therapies, and at the same time, this also is a time where post-infusion there can be a reaction to this CAR T. It can cause a reaction called CRS, which is cytokine release syndrome, or ICANS, which can affect the nervous system. And these are very serious conditions, and we have ways to treat those conditions. But typically, patients sometimes need the use of ICU, so we also need to coordinate that there is, in fact, an ICU bed that is available. So in Canada, when we're making the product here domestically, are what we call vein-to-vein time. So from the time of that not the lymphodepletion, but the apheresis, we have a manufacturing time of approximately 2 weeks compared to the slightly longer amount of time that it takes for the commercial product. So that's what we're able to accomplish here in Canada when we're making this product here.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that. And Kate, I don't know if you were at the morning plenary, but there was a lot of conversation around keeping innovation in Canada. And with regenerative medicines, we know that Canada has a sort of a rich history dating back to the 60s with Till and McCulloch and the discovery of hematopoietic stem cells. I know you have a session going into more detail a little bit later in the proceedings this week about accelerated access. But can you share some of where you think that Canada needs to go to foster an ecosystem to better develop that homegrown novel medicines that are being developed here?
Sure. So thanks very much to CDA for having us today and for this report. I have to tell you, when I first heard about this report coming, I felt seen. Like, regenerative medicine is no longer emerging. It's actually here. Access is a really important issue that we have to tackle. These therapies are coming. They will not just treat the symptoms of disease and illness. They can halt them. They can cure them. I know that's a big word, but that is the hope and potential. But they come in all sorts of various forms, where they're delivered at point of care, as we've just talked about with CAR T. They also will come at a more large-scale variety using allogeneic cells and cell lines, and these will help with diseases like diabetes. an area that I think is likely the next spot where we'll see the big bang for cellular therapies and for regenerative medicine. But our system isn't really there yet to be able to adopt these therapies. They're not small molecule drugs. They're not diagnostics. You can't crunch these together into one pathway that's this way or that. We need to look and be adaptable and understand what we're dealing with and understand who the patients are. If it's for a rare disease, we can't demand phase 3 clinical trials. Doesn't make sense. We need N of 1s for gene therapies, and those N of 1 trials need to be affordable and timely so they can get to patients quickly. And so I think here in Canada, because we have this history with cell and gene therapies, because this is our science, as you noted, Chris, the existence of stem cells was proven by James Till and Ernst McCullough in the early 60s. We are the pioneers of this field. It should be a point of great national pride for us. And as a result, I think it would be a mistake if we don't seize upon that. And the way I think we can do that is, and I know there's going to be some eye rolls, but we need to create a prioritized pathway for Canadian innovations, and we need to ensure there's a Canadian designation for the innovations that are coming out of the incredible research facilities across this country and are being developed by an extraordinary set of biotechs across this country. That prioritization, that designation, would allow for easier access through regulatory, through the access continuum, with commitments to procure, so that the taxpayer dollars that we've invested in their development are not lost, and we actually see a strong return on investment for the money that we've put in. So this is our potential, this is our challenge, it can be done. This is about system readiness, this is not about geopolitics, this is about the decisions that we make in this room. And I think that we need to start considering our regulatory and our access continuums, not just there for safety and health, which has to be a #1 priority, but we need to consider them dual use, dual purpose, because they can also be economic drivers for this country.
Great. Thank you so much. And so maybe to pick up on that, thank you, from the audience, how can, and maybe this is a question for everybody about sort of the roles of different levels of government and pan-Canadian bodies. So how can federal, provincial, territorial and pan-Canadian bodies like CDA better align their roles to sort of meet that goal that you've described? Sorry, Kate. Asking you, Kate, and then we'll maybe get everybody to weigh in on that one. Sorry.
Okay, so how can they better?
How can we better align our roles? Like we've got federal, we've got provincial, we've got pan-Canadian bodies like ours.
We have a very complicated system in this country. It's about coordination, and it's about talking to each other at the earliest moments in time. It's not about doing things sequentially. It's about doing them together. And we need, if I think about it from the perspective of the researchers in our network, they know, if they're interested in translation, they may know that they need regulatory approval, but they have no idea about health technology assessment. Well, some do, but it's a smaller number. And then how it actually gets deployed as a standard of care into the clinic and how these things are reimbursed is also a head scratcher. So we need to have conversations that start with the research community and work forward. We need to talk about the system as a whole. We need fuller coordination and decisions happening together. And in this, you know, some of the alignment conversations that have already been happening and changes, this is fantastic. We need more of that. Rolling reviews, we need more of that. We need to think about how we introduce financial innovations into the system that will allow for sharing risk. It's not all on industry, it's not all on government to pay for, it's not all on the patient to pay for. We need to start to think about how we share risk so we can afford these therapies. That's a big one. That's going to require cross-coordination from the federal and the provincial and territorial levels. So it's time to put our big boy pants on and have a big conversation.
Stephanie, anything to add?
I'll use a concrete example from the CAR-T program that I've touched upon in the first question. And the name of the program is CLIC, which stands for Canadian-led Immunotherapies in Cancer. We made the decision to produce CAR-Ts in Canada and onboard the manufacturing for these types of products because even if one of our researchers in our network, which is national, wanted to design or had a CAR-T ready to go, we had no way in 2017 when we made the decision to do this, to make this. It took us 2 years to onboard manufacturing to deliver a clinical grade product for patients. And we selected a CD19 because we were aware of what was going on in the field. We knew that it was going to work. We leveraged the investments that had been made over the years in the CFI, leveraging GMP viral manufacturing for the viral vector manufacturer in Ottawa, plasmid production out of BC, BC Cancer, and then leveraging cell therapy manufacturing at the site in Victoria, and then onboarding cell manufacturing in a number of other sites as well. So that took us 2 years to do, and we already had that existing infrastructure, just to give you a sense. And as you can imagine, many millions of dollars. At the very same time, and the C word here is coordination of all of these groups and really taking that kind of network approach. And both Kate and I are in the leadership positions of these networks, right? So it's about coordination and networking and leveraging the investments that have been made in Canada. At the very same time, through one of our programs, we funded a clinical, social, and economic impact program in order to develop a patient-informed clinical trial protocol for the product that we were working to make. And that program engaged patients and engaged health economists, and really to start thinking about what would be needed to make the case to health systems in Canada for this kind of product, and really how do we make it fit into our health system. And I just want to underscore how important this is in the Canadian context, because this is something that we do not do enough. And so when the manufacturing was onboarded, we had a clinical trial protocol that was patient-informed, Canadian experience-informed, early HTA-informed. We were able to go knock on the door of Health Canada to say, here is our clinical trial application submission. And within, I would say, around 3 weeks, we had the approval and we were set to go, which was incredible. Engagement and thinking about what this could look like in terms of implementation is absolutely necessary. Engagement with our regulator about what could a market authorization look like for this type of product is absolutely essential. Have there been an enormous long list, longer than my whole body, of lessons learned in the CD19 program? Yes, absolutely. But we're taking those learnings right now, implementing them in a number of our other programs. And because we've built this manufacturing capacity and know-how in Canada, we now have a portfolio of different CAR-Ts that are in different stages of development, including a pediatric trial, also treating adults with a CD22, in addition to a slew of others targeting rare cancers, and then those that are in the pipeline that we expect to come online soon. This kind of experience is really necessary for us to gain in Canada, because we see then on the ground first, first sight of what it is going to take to deliver this kind of product using our infrastructure and our hospitals and our systems. We've gotten some great support from provinces, because these trials that we're running are investigator-led, where in some of the provinces in which we run these trials, the clinical costs are covered by some of the provinces, which has been an incredible advantage. But I also implore a number of folks in this room to think that are from the provinces and I share this because it's an important piece to ensure that we can perhaps have access either via clinical trial or another way, by supporting these initiatives to do things like support clinical costs for these investigator-initiated trial. So it's really all that experience, that know-how in both GMP biomanufacturing, in health economics, looking at implementation, and then actually delivering a made-in-Canada product over a short period of time that is actually getting to patients like Camille.
Thank you. And so, Camille, we've heard about just now about like the importance of the system coordination at various levels, and you talked a little bit about the barriers you faced as you were, seeking treatment. Can you maybe talk about how the system can better support patients through their journey?
So, I was thinking today, I think we need to be proactive and not reactive. We need to tell patients maybe sooner about these therapies, even if they don't need them. It would have been nice to know about it when I was first diagnosed, that, if the standard treatment for the type of cancer I had didn't work, that there were possibilities out there for me. And I'm just so grateful. The only reason that I even knew CAR T-cell existed was because during my preparation for stem cell transplant, a doctor said, if this transplant doesn't work, there is other things out there. And I remember joking with the doctor, and I said, well, this is my cure, so I'm not going to need it. But I unfortunately did end up needing it. But I'm also very frustrated knowing that there are Canadian patients right now that need that therapy that I did, and that they don't have access. Also, I know I wouldn't have made it to any other country to do CAR T-cell. It was this one or nothing. There were no other options for me. But yeah, there was tons of barriers for me. It just so happened everything fell into place the way it did, and I was one of the lucky ones. But again, I don't feel right about that. Like, I feel we know that something works. It's manufactured in Canada. There's no reason any patient in Canada should have to leave this country to get treatment that not only is in Canada. I learned in the last couple of years that there are so many things that have been made in Canada, and because they're not getting out fast enough, that people are leaving here and going to other countries, which to me, it's devastating to know that.
And so something that we could be doing better, I guess, is promoting that awareness of these therapies.
Promoting awareness and, trying to figure out a way to make it accessible to all Canadians. Again, I don't know, the logistic, all of that stuff. I just know that there is a better way of doing what we're doing right now.
Yeah. And so when you get to that point of, sort of understanding the treatments that are available, as we sort of discussed at the opening, there's a lot of uncertainty with that. So as a patient, how do you navigate that uncertainty in order to make a decision about accepting or, balancing those risks with your needs as a patient?
Well, look, do you mean when I really didn't have any other options? I mean, I will tell one thing. I didn't know that I was able to refuse a treatment. I was also going through this in the middle of a world pandemic. I didn't have people advocating for me or speaking for me. But when I was told that I would have to do another chemo protocol that included some of the same medications that were in the induction that did not work for me, I broke down and said, I'm not doing that again. So there's got to be another way. But I was also denied medications. I went through quite a bit to get to Ottawa, and it wasn't without, being sent home a couple times. But I'm here. Yeah.
Oh, we're thankful for that. Maybe Stephanie, we can talk a little bit about evidence, just, again, sticking with that theme of uncertainty. And, what can we be doing to address evidence gaps and the needs of regulators and HTA bodies? The challenge, what are some of the challenges we face in order to make it easier to generate that evidence to support that decision making?
That is a fantastic question, and I would say one of the greatest learnings coming out of the CLIC program, and it is to engage as early as possible with our regulator. And Health Canada has been excellent to the CLIC group, especially in the context of clinical trials. However, there really is a need to better support innovators that are bringing these types of therapies forward, and there is a need for greater dialogue outside of the formal processes that we have currently to be able to provide the guidance that we need. And I would also be looking to CDA as well, and asking the question of what is the CDA going to be doing in order to support our Canadian innovators, either from academic institutions or from companies, so that they are positioning their technologies in the most effective way, so that when we get to the end of a clinical trial, and we are having discussions, for example, around marketing authorization and really looking at what potential implementation in the Canadian healthcare system could look like, that we're really set up for success. And there's really that need for that openness of dialogue. And the experience has been so far, and specifically in the context of Health Canada, that there are ways to engage with them, and they are typically, especially once you advance to a later stage of a clinical trial, and we have treated, the CLIC group has treated over 100 patients with the CD19 product, and there is a need for other pathways of engagement. And we can look outside of our borders at what EMA is doing, we can look at what FDA is doing, and the different programs that they have, for example, to support academic developers, different types of designations which give that kind of access to the innovators, to the small company, to better interface and interact with our regulator. And these discussions are absolutely invaluable. And we have had these types of discussions with our regulator, and they were incredible learnings for the entirety of the team. We just need to do these more often, and so there has to be another way to be able to do that. And other jurisdictions are recognizing the incredible economic wealth that resides really in our regulatory agencies. So the question is, and question for this room is, how do we position our regulators to really act as innovators alongside the people that are doing the work of developing these different types of therapies? And so that kind of rethink is very much needed. And we'd be more than happy to work with them with respect to this.
Maybe a bit of a selfish question, and I'll put it to all of you, but I'll start with you, Kate. So you mentioned in your earlier remarks that you felt seen when you saw this report and that we were doing this work. So what do you think the benefit of a sort of pan-Canadian report like the watch list has to the work that you do and to the broader health system?
So the benefit, I think, of a report like this is that it raises awareness. It gets people talking and thinking about what's coming down the road and the urgency of us getting our ducks in a row so that we can adopt these therapies. It's challenging and it's complex, and it's going to take all of us in this room to do it. And I think being able to have a report like this that spurs discussion is really, really critical. And I hope, forces conversations around being adaptable, being agile, ensuring that our systems are responsive, that they move at the speed of both science and business. That's really, I think, very important if we're going to seize the opportunity of regenerative medicine. And let me tell you, from a patient's perspective, and the seat that I sit in, there are many days I get phone calls and emails from people saying, how do I get a stem cell treatment for X, Y, or Z? 10 times out of 10, I tell them, you don't. That hasn't been approved yet. Don't go waste your money. But patients will go in search of these therapies outside of our country if they can't get them here. So we have an obligation to make sure that we are able to be responsive so we are not putting patients at further risk by taking greater risks by leaving the country. I think that's really important, and it's not going to save, we'll have Canadians coming back with a whole new set of potential tumors from an unregulated therapy that our healthcare system then has to address. So think about the unintended consequences and costs by us not moving quickly, efficiently, effectively, in a coordinated way. It's absolutely essential, I think, for patients. They're going to demand it. And we're either going to get forced to respond, or we can get in front of the 8 ball. And this report is a call to action for us to get in front of the 8 ball, to address the challenges, and to seize the opportunities that are here.
Any additional thoughts, Stephanie?
Yeah,
or
I do,
Camille?
actually. So it's one thing for Kate, Camille, and I to get in front of you and say regulatory change is required. The weight of this report that has been created, it comes from an independent, highly regarded organization like the CDA. And so it comes with the weight of what you represent in our ecosystem, both here and internationally. I would like to say that it is the beginning of a strategic plan for what this kind of therapy and development of strategies to support advanced therapeutics in Canada could look like. That is what I think of it.
Well, that's great. Thank you. And Camille, how do you see this this type of report sort of supporting patients on their journey and their experience with regenerative medicines?
Well, I think it brings hope. Patients need possibility, not promises from this industry. So even the possibility that there's something out there to help somebody, and that, anyway, I'm just a little overwhelmed, guys, but yeah, I'm just grateful.
Well, thank you. So I'm seeing the time tick down, so maybe before we sort of wrap up, I could ask each of you for maybe a final thought, a last takeaway on the subject of regenerative medicine to leave everybody to talk about as they go to the reception that follows. I'll start with you, Kate.
I guess my final thought is the opportunities with regenerative medicine are incredible. From treating cancers and saving lives, like Camille's, to addressing severe illnesses and injuries and burns for children across the chronic disease and the rare disease area. Regenerative medicine is a pathway to better health. Canadians deserve to be able to access the most innovative health solutions we can offer. If we are going to lead in this country, we need to lean into what regenerative medicine has to offer. And it is incumbent upon all of us to collaborate, to find solutions, and to not be stuck by processes. Now is the time to do things differently.
Final thoughts, Stephanie?
I'm in a very fortunate position in being in the leadership of BioKinetics and Kate with the Stem Cell Network. We're very fortunate in that we are translational research organizations, and we are able to see the amazing research that has had excellent proof of concept results actually be transformed into clinical trials. Our organizations are really about being able to offer to Canadians here in Canada the best that Canadian science has to offer. But we're also, in being able to do all of this work, really offer a unique lens in what it's going to take to be able to build up our capacity to develop our own made-in-Canada solutions. So we have a lot of evidence, we have a lot of know-how, and we're really at the coalface of what it takes to develop new products, new advanced therapeutics in Canada. And it's an honor to be able to speak about this here today.
Thank you. Any final thoughts that you want to leave the audience with, Camille?
Don't give up. Give your patients information prior to them needing it. Give them options. Let them know that it's okay to say no. And keep working on whatever it is that you guys are working on, because it is breaking my heart knowing that there's patients like me out there right now that aren't able to access a Canadian product that I know for a fact works, because I'm here. So, and this September will be 5 years post-CAR T-cell therapy.
So that is the conclusion of our session, launching the 2026 watch list on regenerative medicine. A sincere thank you to you all for sharing your expertise, sharing your experience, Camille, and talking so candidly about the issues and the challenges for the health system that some of these innovative therapies bring. Thank you to all of you in the room for joining us, and a special thank you to our virtual attendees for joining online. For everyone in the room, you can head over to level 3 in the Parliament foyer for our welcome reception, which runs until 6 p.m. Please grab a drink, mingle, help us celebrate our 2026 Recognition Awards recipients when they're announced at the reception. And for patient group representatives, don't miss the patient meet and greet at 5:30. That's on level 2 at the Rideau Canal Atrium South. And join me again in thanking all of our speakers today for their valuable insights.